Thank you very much. Inchin Zhang from SUSTech. This is John work with some of my graduate students and also with colleagues from ByteDance. And unfortunately, first author cannot come for obvious reasons, so here I am. So you have to press this harder. Okay. I guess everybody knows about large language models, so I'll cut to the chase. So large language models works in a recursive manner, so the output of the previous iteration can become part of the input of the next iteration. So the most computation intensive part is to compute the KV vectors to determine the attention of each token. So this part can be very time consuming, and many of the LLM serving systems do this treat space for time optimization, which is adopted everywhere in system optimization mechanisms. And the idea is to have a KV cache to store the KV vectors that have been used for previous KV vectors and reuse it in the future iterations. And this problem with KV cache is that it can become very big. If you look at the pie chart on the left, for a Llama 2 7B model, the model weights can occupy only 17% of the GPU memory, and the majority of the rest of the GPU memory can be occupied by the KV cache for the prompts. And here in this example, the size of the token is only 128K, so it's not very big. And if you look at the table on the right, it further shows the problem for other models. Well, a very common solution to this problem is to share the KV cache across different requests across different users. So the idea is that if two users have the requests that are similar enough, like in this example, they both have imagine you are an IT expert and tell me how to install. The only difference is the operating system, Windows and Linux. So the common part can be stored in a common KV cache. But the restriction is that, well, the two requests has to be exactly the same in part of their prefix. The example shown at the bottom is that if the second request have insert a new token like please, then the KV cache cannot be shared between these two requests. That's the problem. Okay, so basically, the large language model inference system work like this. The end users will send the request to the LLM server engines, and the first component within that engine to handle the request is called query queue scheduler, which is similar to many of the schedulers in the operating systems. Basically, it select the request to be served first, and different LLM server engine may implement different policy, and the one we study in our paper is called SGLang, which is a very popular LLM serving system. It uses the longest prefix matching policy. So the idea is to prioritize the request that has the longest matching prefix with the one that is already in the KV cache. And the second component is the batch handler, which batches the requests into several batches to handle them together. And SGLang adopts a dynamic batching algorithm, which basically means that the system will not wait until all the requests has been served before it starts the next batch. And the last component is LLM handler, which actually does the inference and manage the KV cache. And what is unique for SGLang is that it adopts a radix tree structure of the KV cache, which will enable a very efficient and efficient management and fast lookup of the each token in the KV cache. That is the unique feature of SGLang. And eventually, the request will be responded to the end users. So our attack, well, this is the general idea of our attack. While the user is making use of the LLM server to do some inference, his KV cache is stored. And then at the same time, the attacker, the adversary, will send his own request and try to figure out whether the KV cache sharing is triggered. And if it is triggered, well, that learns something about the victim's query. At least a part of the prefix of the adversary's request it matches exactly with the victim's request prefix, so that this matching will reveal some information. And now our attack works in a token-by-token extraction manner. So I'll just give you one example. Well, here, assuming that the attacker has already extracted 3 tokens, imagine you are, and the next token could be, well, that's the task of the attacker to learn the next token. So the attacker will leverage a local large language model to do some prediction. And note this local large language model does not need to be the same as the target one, but as long as they share the same tokenizer. But of course, most of the LLM serving systems, they do not keep the tokenizer as a secret, even the closed source ones. And with this local large language model, the attacker is able to make some prediction on the next token to generate some candidates. And in this example, it could be imagine you are N, imagine you are A, or imagine you are D, right? And also the attacker will create some dummy tokens like percent symbol, which is impossible to be used by the victim users. And with that, the attacker will perform the following steps. The first step is to send one batch of dummy request, impossible ones, and the second batch will contain the candidate request, and the third batch also the dummy ones. And this dummy request will help to fill up the query queue. So after this, the query queue scheduler using this longest prefix matching policy, so the order of this request will be changed, right? So we know that imagine you are percent, this is the dummy request, because it will match the one that has actually just been sent by the adversary himself. So it will have a 4 token matching with the ones in the KV cache, and so it will be prioritized. And also, what the other request that will be prioritized will be the one that matches 4 tokens with the victim, which is imagine you are N, which is the one that is correct, and the other ones will be scheduled later. So this request will be served in this order and also respond in the same order. So the attacker will be able to learn the order based on this order to know, well, the correct guess is imagine you are N. Okay, so this is how the attacker can extract one token, and basically the whole picture is that the attacker will pick a random prompt from the user and try to do this extraction token by token until the whole prompt has been extracted. But sometimes the attacker may fail either because there are some hard to guess tokens that just cannot predict. And another situation, which is also very common, is that KV cache is filled is full, and the attacker can no longer reuse the KV cache. So then, if that is the case, the attacker has to switch to a different, user prompt to start over to learn to steal information from a different prompt. But in order to do so, the attacker needs to first flush the entire KV cache to start over, and the technique to flush the cache can either be using a function called flush cache that is available in SGLang, or if that function is not available, the attacker can use some other techniques. We actually documented one of the more complex method in our paper. If you're interested, take a look. We consider 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is that the attacker doesn't know nothing about the victim's prompt, so the attacker has to learn to make inference token by token. And the second scenario is that if the attacker already knows the template, the attacker can just need to learn some sensitive information to fill in the blank. It's more like the clause test. And the third scenario is that the attacker knows about prompt input but does not know which template the victim is using, and the task is to learn to make inference on the prompt template, which I believe is also valuable in today's LLM applications. Well, this is our evaluation. We did try to make our evaluation more comprehensive, but in a nutshell, we try to answer 2 research questions. The first one is how effective is the attack? We identified 3 key factors that can affect the effectiveness of this attack. One is the memory, the capacity of the GPU memory. Of course, the bigger the GPU size, the more likely the attacker is able to extract the full prompt, and also the number of concurrent users request. And in this figure, I don't know whether you can see it. If the concurrent users request goes beyond like 250, then the likelihood of extracting the full prompt will go down. And the third factor is the attacker strategy. How big the batch size is. Well, if you remember, the batch size it contains multiple requests per batch. So if the batch size is too big, the attacker is bigger. The attacker is able to make this side channel more reliable. Reliable means that there's no false positive, more false detection of the side channel, and the attacker can make this session observation like almost 100% accurate. But if the batch is too big, then the problem is that it is easier to fill up the GPU, the KV cache in the GPU memory, which could also make the attacker fail at some point. So it's a trade-off. A second question we try to explore is how with the cost of each of the attack. So basically, we find that in order to infer correctly each token, we only need less than 10 candidates. But for some tokens, it's harder to guess than others. But again, there are a lot of other figures in the paper. I strongly ask you to read the paper if you're interested. Well, the countermeasures. Well, I have to admit this attack is kind of fragile. It's not very robust. If the LLM serving system changes the scaling policy, it's less likely for the attacker to work as presented in the paper. And we did talk to SGLang authors, and they are very interested. They did make changes to their scaling policy after reading our papers. So pay attention to what they do recently. So last time I checked, I believe it's like they will change to a random scaling policy if they find the query queue is filled up. We'll just do some quick summary of our paper. We identify a new attack surface in the multi-tenant large language model inference services, and the root problem of this side channel is the sharing of KV cache across different users. And just a disclaimer: we did not aim to target any online serving deployment, but the goal of our paper is to identify the problem and try to systematically study the characteristics of this attack and try to give guidance to the LLM serving framework designers so that they can avoid the problem when their framework is deployed in the real world. Okay, with that, I'd like to take questions.
A question from the audience. Yeah, maybe I can give you the microphone first, and then you can. Who's the first? He's the first. Yeah, maybe let him ask the question first.
Yeah, great talk. So I'm Jan from Indiana University. So I'm wondering that whether this attack can be targeted. I mean, the LLM service will be usually have a lot of users. So, and KV cache, I believe, is not specific to users. So I'm wondering whether this attack can be targeted at specific users or not.
Well, that's a very good question. I think the condition for this attack to succeed is very constrained. So especially if you want to target a specific user, you have to collocate with that user on the same node, on same GPU. There's a lot of preconditions for this attack to work for targeted attacks. But we did try to make the attack more systematic, try to evaluate different conditions, how to make this attack work. I would strongly will suggest, if you're interested, read the paper, and we can discuss more details in offline.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. I had one question. Have you considered dynamic candidate generation, as if when you're gradually reconstructing the prompt, you decrease the number of candidates that you consider for like better efficiency?
I think that's very interesting observation. I think that's one aspect this paper can be improved in the future. I think you're talking about the local large language model. We can train it better to make it have better prediction of the next token. Definitely, I think there are room for improvements in our setting. You just need some more effort to develop a better model. I think that's, if you're interested, you can pursue some other research along that direction. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering if the attacker has to send the malicious request at the same time when the victim sends their request.
Well, the setup is that the victim, first of all, has to send his request and have some of his requests stored in the KV cache. And then the attacker can start to attack. Because you know the KV cache, the prompt, the KV cache is huge. So the problem is that the attacker can only extract one, in most of the cases, the attacker can only extract one prompt before the KV cache got filled with data and need to be flushed. So to answer your question, yes, the attacker needs to simultaneously send request with the victim user. Otherwise, if the KV cache is filled with other data, the attacker will not have opportunity to extract the prompt.
And in real-world scenarios, how can the attacker make sure that?
Well, again, in real-world settings, it depends on many situations, right? So for a random, in our setting, we talk about picking a random prompt and try to steal information from that user. So if the attacker does not care which user he is targeted, as long as he can extract some information, I think that attack scenario still works.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, and let's thank our speaker again.
Okay, thank you very much.